And before we wrap up, I'm going to invite one more speaker to join us. Terry Frangiosa, a board member at Schizophrenia and Psychosis Action Alliance, is going to present some of the data from the pre-meeting survey that many of you completed. Some of that data is going to be used as an important complement to the input we got during the meeting today. And you'll also see a summary of that in the Voice of the Patient report. So Terry, turning things over to you with great thanks.
I'm pleased to present the findings from our patient-focused drug development survey to you. I want to thank the respondents for sharing personal and at times painful truths. I'm presenting some highlights here with more substantial publications to follow. I'll start by reviewing the survey background and methodology. This survey was prepared to inform this meeting by gaining perspectives about schizophrenia, day-to-day living, and what individuals with schizophrenia want from treatment. We asked people living with a schizophrenia diagnosis and caregivers to complete the survey. The design was a combination of multiple choice, ranking, and open-ended questions. Both groups of key stakeholders reviewed the questions. This survey was fielded August 9th through September 26th, 2022. We received 206 survey responses. 78 were self-completed by a diagnosed individual, and 128 were completed by caregivers. While we sought broad and diverse participation, our final sample largely identified as white. Caregivers answered for people who were more likely to be male and white than diagnosed individuals. And caregivers also noted higher levels of unemployment for their loved ones. Let's start by discussing key areas of schizophrenia burden. First, we asked participants about their experience in the past week and month. We found that people who completed the survey themselves generally experienced milder symptoms. In contrast, the caregivers bring the perspective of a more severe loved one. This is going to be helpful to keep in mind when we review other results. Our survey participants reported having significant difficulty with many activities of life, including working, starting and finishing things, and remembering things. Caregivers noted much greater difficulty in many areas. For example, over 70% expressed substantially significant difficulty for their loved one on 11 of these 14 items. When asked about how positive and negative symptoms of schizophrenia affect the ability of individuals to function and live, the results were overwhelming. All but one of the items on this list affected nearly 2/3 of individuals. Further, the following are noted to have a significant impact on over 30% of affected individuals: lack of energy, loss of interest in social activities, believing something that others don't believe, loss of motivation, and not trusting other people. Again, caregivers noted that over 30% of their loved ones experienced significant impact on 10 of the 15 listed positive and negative symptoms. Some additional symptoms mentioned were feelings of being watched, feeling more afraid than usual, feeling convinced they were extremely special or talented, and seeing, hearing, and tasting things that aren't there. Perhaps even more impactful were the answers to a question about specific activities in the past year. Over half of the respondents who were represented had thoughts of self-harm. And in addition, almost 60% of caregivers noted that their loved one experienced homelessness in the past year. Participants also noted past legal services, special education or employment needs, hospital stays, treatment for abuse, suicide attempts, and victimization of a crime or abuse. All in all, a devastating picture has been painted by the respondents. It's interesting that reported medication use was so similar for both types of surveys. As expected, oral and long-acting antipsychotic medications are mainstay treatment, with add-on treatment of other medications such as antidepressants and anxiolytics over 30 to 40% of the time. You'll note very high levels of switching and discontinuation on these next two slides, starting with switching. Over 80% of respondents spoke to switching for better efficacy, and over 80% noticed switching to alleviate undesirable side effects. And almost as often, around 70% of the time, the doctor recommended taking a different medication. Survey responses also reveal many reasons why people quit taking their schizophrenia medication. Those with the diagnosis most commonly spoke to quitting due to weight gain. Caregivers most often spoke to their loved ones feeling flat. Lack of efficacy in treating symptoms was the second most common reason for quitting, reported by both groups. Diagnosed individuals also quit in high numbers due to movement effects, flat feeling, and sexual problems. Finally, our survey sheds light on what individuals hope for in new treatments. These results reveal massive room for improvement. While hallucinations and delusions were reported as most important by diagnosed individuals, nearly all the items on this slide were moderately to very important for individuals in both survey groups. From this survey, it's clear that schizophrenia has profound effects on diagnosed individuals and caregivers. And while there are a number of drug treatments available today, the findings illustrate that current drugs are far from adequate and significant progress is needed. It's way past time to bring new and improved treatments to these individuals. They're waiting.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you everyone who participated in the meeting or tuned in to hear the remarkable stories of many individuals who spoke today, the many individuals who shared openly and in a moving fashion. This has been an incredible day of hearing personal insights to help us all better understand schizophrenia and its impact. And to just reflect, when we talked about words that began with the letter P, we heard from panels, polling, participating persons on Zoom, phone-ins and posts, all those things culminating in powerful perspectives from people with schizophrenia. So thank you to so many others as well. Thank you to the FDA for listening in. We hope the information you heard today will be useful as you consider future prospective therapies for schizophrenia. Understanding we heard reflections on unmet needs, what kind of benefit expectations and what kind of risk tolerances may be appropriate. Special thanks to Dr. Bernard Fisher from the Division of Psychiatry, who spoke earlier today about the importance of patient-focused drug development meetings. And thank you to our speakers, Dr. Keshavan, Mary Palafox, Terry Frangiosa. We're so grateful for the work you and your colleagues do every day to help people with schizophrenia. A special thanks to our partner organizations. This meeting would not have happened without you. Thank you to all of our sponsors who helped make this meeting a reality, the co-sponsoring organizations and those who otherwise also contributed. Very important. And we are all in this battle together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, well said, Tim. And thank you most of all to my fellow members of the schizophrenia community, for all of you who told your stories here, the caregivers who told your stories, shared your experiences. It takes an enormous amount of strength to come here in an open public forum. This discussion has been something that actually I'm relatively new to, and it's been amazing to know that there has been so much already done here by the FDA and others, and so many of you who've come before to speak publicly. And as we talked about in the end of the last Zoom there, the more we talk about this, the more we get out and share our experiences, the more powerful this will be, and the stronger we can all be together. So from my heart to yours, thank you.
And just in closing, a video of today's program will be available on demand immediately after we conclude, and at the same link you're now at. The form to submit comments for the report is open for another 30 days. Please consider submitting additional comments, which will be added to our Voice of the Patient report, again, which will be shared with FDA and publicly to any who may have interest. Thank you again and again for all of you who contributed your thoughts and your treasured remarks and insights. Thank you to all of you who viewed, and it was a privilege for Polly and me to be a part of this meeting. So thank you, and Polly, all good.
Mm-hmm, all good.
Stay well all.